Welcome to the Gender Rebels, a question and answer podcast that explores life outside the gender binary.
I'm Kath, a cis woman and ally.
And I'm Faith, a trans woman.
Special thank you to all our Patreon supporters. Hey everyone, I'm Kath.
And I'm Faith.
Faith, we have a question from a listener.
We do.
This is from Kai.
Okay, thanks Kai for sending in your question.
Kai asks, Gender Rebels is honestly my favorite podcast and has helped me a lot when trying to figure out my gender and stuff. Aw, Kai, thank you.
Good choice. What good taste Kai has.
A question I had, might be a topic. My boyfriend is very accepting, but has religious parents that don't exactly get me being non-binary. I'm not sure how to explain it to them. And also to people in my family, like my little sister who's in elementary school and my grandparents. I was wondering if you could give any advice on how to talk with people about being trans or non-binary who aren't really knowledgeable about anything other than cisgender folks. Kai, great question.
I actually feel like transitioning from male to female, female to male is actually, oddly enough, seems easier to explain to people.
Sure.
Because you're still staying within that binary.
And they know the binary. They understand the binary. They feel safe in the binary.
Yeah. And that's... Non-binary is, like, to me, it seems very clear, like, and basic. Like, here's these two genders, and I don't really fit into either one, or I like things from both. And it's weird, because biological sex is a spectrum, but for the majority of people, it is fairly binary. You know, there are, males and females, and that's true of most species that sexually reproduce. And so there is a sort of biological basis to that, of that notion that there is male and there's female. And again, biological sex is indeed a spectrum. There are a lot of people, a surprising number, and it's not really talked about because it's weird and squicky or whatever, and doesn't fit. But there's normal, happy, amazing people who are biologically neither necessarily male nor female, who are part of that spectrum and leading perfectly wonderful lives.
Yeah,
and
intersex is a real thing and a fascinating thing. We have an episode on it, and I will link to that in the show notes, or you could Google it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and I'll link to the Sci Show episode as well.
Oh, yes.
Biological sex is a spectrum, because they get into all the different ways it is definitely a spectrum. But for the average, and I think human brains are pattern seeking. Our brains like to cheat.
Oh, yeah.
And so they want to come up with simple rules to explain things.
They like shortcuts. They like assumptions.
Yeah. And there's that helps us in a lot of ways, and that hurts us in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So when our brains want a shortcut and we're like, all people of this race are just one person with one particular attribute, that's bad.
Yes.
And our brains... But when our brains are like, if it looks like a tiger and it's in the thing and it's going to attack me, it's probably a tiger. Or that smells bad, don't eat it.
Yeah.
So there's good assumptions our brain makes and there's bad assumptions our brain makes. And again, that's something that's so hardwired into us. You're the neuroscientist.
So it's a matter of recognizing what your brain is defaulting to and correcting that with education. So in this case, the frontal lobe has to be like, hold on there, amygdala, stop screaming. That's just a picture of a tiger, or whatever it is. So this is not necessarily about threat. This is just about what's most familiar.
Or just the idea of like, everyone of this race is the same. Everyone of this nationality is just the same person. And those stereotypes can be very, very, very harmful. But there's something that, your frontal lobe, the part of your brain that has higher reasoning, has to overcome. And more information and education, and letting your frontal lobe make those decisions and not just going with the amygdala, that is the fear center, our old lizard brain. So the point is, delving into all this neuroanatomy stuff, but the point is that our brains have kind of come up with this shortcut that there's these biological sexes are male and female, and our culture has decided that there are specific behaviors that go with each of these genders.
Right.
That go with each of these biological sexes, and that societal creation is gender, and it is 100% societal. There's certain things that are definitely biological to that. Women having the babies and nursing the babies. This obviously makes sense. But beyond that, like, the idea that, men hunt and women gather, like, there's nothing inherently biological to that. Women wear pretty dresses and makeup, and men wear suits and ties. Again, there's nothing biological to that. That's all society. So our brain defaults to this, like, simple shortcut. Girl one, boy one. Every person must fit into these two categories. And historically, people haven't.
Right.
In a lot of ways. And the more you look into history, I would love to we really have to research this, but I would love to one day do an episode about all the people in history who are, like, queer and trans. And
absolutely.
Because there's tons of them.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been recorded, but it's not talked about because, we gotta save time for the wars and the big things in history class. Can't talk about people. You get to college and they're like, we can talk about things other than wars in history class, by the way. You can talk about social movements. Maybe that's changed since I was a kid, but that's sort of this easy assumption in our society, and that's why I think transitioning from a biologically assigned male kind of situation to a assigned female situation or vice versa makes sense to people, because it's like, well, you're just switching back and forth. Non-binary is one that's like in a spectrum. Doesn't fit into those categories, so it's harder for people, I think, to wrap their heads around it. And it shouldn't be. I could literally explain what non-binary is in like 2 sentences. Kath, take a crack at it. See if you can get it.
Neither male nor female. Something in between, neither or both.
I think that was 3 sentences, but we'll let you have it.
No, there was a semicolon.
Oh, there was. Okay. So that was 1 sentence. So it's not a complicated thing, but we had Nibbling come out non-binary recently, and we were visiting your family. It was like our first post-COVID trip, and your parents are boomers.
Yeah,
not in a bad way. Like, hey, boomer or whatever. But your parents are boomers, and I was getting really annoyed that your dad was getting, like, lazy about gendering me correctly.
Yeah. My dad gets Faith's name right, but misgenders her half the time.
Yeah, and it was getting really annoying, and he's not being mean or anything. No. He's just just.
It's not a habit yet.
It's not a habit yet.
When he's distracted by something else, that's when he will slip up.
And I was getting really kind of bothered by it on this trip, and but then we had like a big family dinner, and then Nibbling was there, and there are they, them, and non-binary, and it was screwing up that their pronouns too, and then oddly enough, that made me feel a little better because I'm like, it's not just me, it's
anyone whose pronouns are different.
Yeah, so
it's difficulty with learning pronouns, not something inherent to you.
So with your parents who were in their 60s, 70s, something like that? Yeah. How was it? How did you feel that they reacted to the non-binary Nibbling?
The same way as when my brother came out and when you came out. Loving and supportive and confused and, having the best intentions, but looking for information and having a few screw-ups here and there. on their journey to getting it right. So that's what I am most happy about, is there was no knee-jerk reaction in any of those situations. They're like, nope, this isn't real. You don't know what you're talking about. Time for some horrific psychiatric treatment for you. Like, that was never, ever the case. The case was always, this is my family member who I love, and I'm going to try to figure it out. And I'm going to have some screw-ups along the way. Plenty of screw-ups along the way.
Your parents are loving. They're religious. They are, but they're kind of a little more liberal.
Yeah.
Christian. They're not your fundamentalist evangelical
Correct.
type people. Now, Kai doesn't say what religion necessarily.
Say that again?
Kai doesn't say necessarily what religion.
Oh, religious.
They're very
parents.
religious.
Yes.
And so you have so Kai is basically saying that the in-laws, the boyfriend's parents, whatever, are very religious, and they don't exactly get me being non-binary.
Right.
Not sure how to explain it to them. I mean, I think it's sort of, you have to say what you feel, and that's kind of how you explain it, is just be honest and just say, hey, look, this never worked for me. I was assigned male, I was assigned female, and it never felt right. And we often talk about saying, like, what if you were forced to wear a clown costume?
Yes.
Every day, and you would feel stupid and ridiculous, and it wouldn't feel right. And
you would go about your life trying to succeed despite being in a clown costume every single day.
Yeah.
And even if everyone else around you is in a clown costume, it still wouldn't feel right.
Yeah.
For you.
And obviously, Kai, you are gonna be the one who can explain this, and these are your emotions and your feelings and the thought processes that you've put into this, and you've looked at your life and you've looked at society and you've gone, yeah, non-binary is the way to go. This is me. This is what
feels
fits
right.
Me. Yeah,
I got it now.
And you've gone through the mental exercises, to figure that out for yourself. And so it's just a matter of communicating that to them.
Yeah. And Kai, you grew up with the exact same biases that our culture has, that everyone is binary.
Yeah.
You know, they grew up with that, and you grew up with that. You are all saturated in this broth of you are either male or female, period. And I don't know, maybe at some point you looked at your assigned gender, you look at the other one, and you're like, No. Like your dysphoria at being the assigned gender. Ugh. But that other one looks great. And I'm imagining how much harder it is for non-binary people to look at their gender and feel dysphoric or some level of discomfort. Look at the other gender and kind of try to project your mind out and, okay, maybe I'm that gender. No, same problem. It's not that either. And just the mental process to getting to the point where you're like, oh, there's something else. Yeah. Oh, there's another way. Oh, that is it. There it is. So that must have been difficult. Must have taken a while. How awesome that you were able to arrive to that, and that you do have a supportive partner, and I'm hoping supportive family. But yeah, you want to explain it. You want, loving, supportive, confused people to be a little bit less confused. Yeah. And we had an episode earlier where we talked with our non-binary friend, Avery. And
Avery's fun. You should
Avery's
check
awesome.
that episode out.
Link down below. We actually have Avery on twice. The first one was called Everything in Between, and the other was called Non-Binary Talk with Avery. And the way they explained it to their family, or I think I even asked them, how would I explain this to my grandma? They said, start with intersex. It's a little bit of an esoteric concept. Maybe not everyone is aware of this. So talk about, there are people with Klinefelter syndrome. There are people with triple X syndrome. There are people with androgen insensitivity. There are not a ton of people, but a sizable chunk of the population who are not male or female in a chromosomal type of way that a biologist would categorize. There are other biological genders. Grandma, I am non-binary. I'm not saying I'm intersex, unless you had a karyotype or you have, unless you know you are intersex. Go get a karyotype.
Just because it would make things easier for coming out.
If it turned out you were, I'm not intersex, but to be non-binary is sort of the mind state, the cultural state of something in between. It is not common, but it is not zero. There are a lot of intersex people. There are a lot of non-binary people. We, the non-binary community, are becoming more comfortable, and it's safer to come out and ask people to call us they, them. It'll be tricky, but I believe in you. Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
I think people have an easier time starting from a concrete biological concept.
Yeah.
So if you talk about someone whose body cannot perceive testosterone, that's androgen insensitivity syndrome, and those people grow up looking very feminine, acting in many cases very feminine, and only, find out they're infertile, if they're trying to have kids. There's a whole world of intersex people and types, and it's really interesting. If your grandpa or your little sister are sciencey, you can talk about that first and then say, so intersex is sort of like that, but it's my gender. It's how I want to be perceived in the world. It's how I want to present in the world. It's how I want people to treat me, and simple as that.
Yeah. Simple as complicated.
As complicated as that.
More people are coming out. I think like more celebrities are coming out non-binary, which is fantastic. And I think that also helps explain things a little easier because there are real people. You're like, when I say real people, I mean there's like people that they may have heard of.
Yeah.
And you can be like, hey, this actor or this musician or whoever is for a lot of religions, and I don't want to say all religions because that's a broad brush, but a lot of religions like Latter-day Saints, Mormons comes to mind of like even heaven is gendered, something like that where there's very specific rules. Certain sects of Islam are very gender specific rules. Judaism, like Orthodox Judaism.
Orthodox Judaism
is very specific rules for men and women, and so I think in a lot of religions it can be difficult for religious people to kind of wrap their heads around that because they may perceive it as sinful. And I think I don't know, Kai, if you are religious, but there's a lot of LGBTQ religious people,
sure.
and people have managed to work that into their faith, and you don't say what religion they are, but it's something where someone of that religion, and it may even be you, but someone of that religion likely is queer. And someone who's very devoutly of that religion, is queer. There are queer Muslims, there are queer Jewish people, there are queer Christians. I would say search out that group. There may be, I'm sure like on Facebook or the internet or wherever, you can find, like if it's LDS, if it's Sunni Muslim, whatever it is, you can probably find a group of even like queer or non-binary folks who are that religion and who believe wholeheartedly in that religion and are also non-binary. And I would reach out to them and see how they reconcile that with their faith. And when it comes to faith, it's an internal choice that we make. It's maybe choice is the wrong word. It's an internal feeling that we have. And your relationship with the numinous higher power, whatever that numinous higher power is your relationship.
What does numinous mean?
Numinous is like ethereal.
Oh, okay. Immaterial?
Immaterial. I don't know. I can look up numinous, mysterious, unknown, or whatever. I'm gonna have to look it up. Numinous, having a strong religious or spiritual quality, indicating or suggesting the presence of divinity.
Okay, so a divine.
That religion is a personal choice. And obviously there are religious communities because people exist in communities.
Yeah.
But ultimately your faith is something internal, and it has to be that because you believe and you have faith, and that is internal. And different religious people have come to different understandings of how they can have that faith and how they can be non-binary, they could be queer, they could be trans or gay, and it syncs with their faith. Mm-hmm. And it may be that they're like, I've got a relationship with God, and God knows my heart, and God knows that I believe the important parts of this, and and that may be charity and helping others and loving others, and that may not be following all these rules and explicitly as put out in this one book. And again, everyone religiously, I think, chooses how they follow even really, really codified religious rules. They choose how they follow them. I was just reading the excellent book Becoming Eve, My Journey from Ultra-Orthodox Rabbi to Transgender Woman by Abby, I think it's Stein. Abby Stein. Becoming Eve. Definitely check the book out. It's very good. But she grew up like ultra-Orthodox.
Yeah, in the Hasidic community in Brooklyn.
Yeah. And so even like that, where it is super religious community, they don't agree. She talks about these sects, and there's different sects of orthodoxy, even in this, community of like, let's say 10,000 people or however many it is. And there's like 40 different sects, each of whom has like 100 people.
Right.
Because they have some differing view on, one of these particular rules.
Right. Like what color tights the women wear, whether it's nude hose, gray tights, or black tights, or what kind of head covering the women would have, whether it's some cloth and sort of a partial wig, or just a cloth head covering, or what kind of cloth head covering. Whether the men wear fur hats or not. Well, generally it's after they're married, but in this sect, maybe a really upstanding young man can wear a fur hat before he's married, or all of these details. And I'm just talking about the clothes, the outward presentation. But I think what Faith is saying is that there's still little bits of variance in in how you observe and how you adhere to those rules. And I think that's just absolutely dynamite advice, really amazing advice of seeking out those 20 or 100 or 2,000 Sunni Muslim non-binary people who have some message board online. The little group of loving, active, supportive, LDS non-binary people. What were their journeys like? What were their thought processes like? And what have they done with the texts that they've been given, the books that you've all read? How have they made that work for them? How have they interpreted things in a new and interesting way? I gotta tell you, queer Bible study is fascinating. It is so interesting.
Link to that book that first time we were in Philadelphia.
Yep.
I grew up hardcore evangelical. And the first time we were in Philadelphia, we attended a really interesting talk about queer coding in the Bible. And this is Christian, the Christian Bible, Protestant, really. And it was fascinating. And we'll link down to...
just want to find that guy's name.
Yeah.
He is so good. Give me a second. Austin Hartke.
So we saw this great talk about like a queer, reading, queer understanding of the Christian Bible by Austin Hartke, author of, I think, Seeing Myself in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And just for a Christian, like that was fantastic. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I remember finding the Gnostic Gospels, kind of the B-sides, or the deleted scenes from the Bible, but the Gnostic Gospels, like the Gospel of Timothy, definitely informed the other Gospels, the canonical Gospels. They quote from the Gospel of Timothy, which is a Gnostic Gospel, and that has, like, very queer stuff in it, of, like, I created none of you man nor woman. You are neither man nor woman. You are all in between, or something like that. Like, that's in the Gnostic Gospels, and that's, from a Christian perspective. So I would say whatever your religion is, you can find, people have put work into this, and that may help, certainly. With, like, you don't say how religious they are, but I assume that if you bring it up, it's somewhat a stumbling block. And I think that can be a great path. And I think for a kid, a 10-year-old elementary school kid, honestly, I feel like they understand this stuff more. Yeah.
I mean, I would start with intersex for the 10-year-old kid, even, is like, this isn't, you don't hear about this too much. It's not super common, but there are plenty of people. This is what intersex is. And while I am not intersex, as far as I know, I am non-binary, and it's similar to that in this way, and this is how I choose to live my life and present, and try to call me they, them when you can remember.
Yeah. And I think just, you're non-binary, you're aware, you're already patient. That's the other thing. It's just patience with people. I think even people who are super religious or super conservative, I think they can come around.
Yeah.
Over time. And it's tricky when it's your boyfriend's parents and not your own, because you can't, like, with my own parents, I could kind of be like, if you don't like it, you can take a hike.
Yeah.
You want to have a relationship with me, this is the relationship we're having.
Yeah.
So obviously with your boyfriend's parents, you can't quite throw the hammer down like that, but maybe your boyfriend can. Maybe your boyfriend wants to. Maybe your boyfriend can back you up on this. And I think that's going to be probably another great resource, is get your boyfriend involved and make them put in a little effort. And it doesn't have to be, take it or leave it. It can be like, hey, this is someone, I'm speaking as your boyfriend. This is someone who is really important to me. This is probably the most important person in my life. And
it's important that you love and accept them for who they are, just as I have, and I hope you can. Yeah. And here's some information if you need it.
Yeah. And I would say, bring your boyfriend in on this religious exploration. As you reach out to people, bring your boyfriend in as part of the discussion, and I think that will really help too.
Yeah. I hope you can send us an update. Let us know how it's been going. Let us know how it goes. And other non-binary people who are listening, or people who are in any way not on the binary, somehow in some variation of the spectrum, write in and let us know how you spelled it out to your family, how you spelled it out to little kids, how you spelled it out to your boss. Like, this is all really helpful stuff to know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. I hope we helped Kai a little bit.
Me too.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, Faith.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And thank you, Kath.
We'll talk to you next time.
And thank you, Kai, for writing in.
Yeah.
Bye. All right. Bye.
If you've enjoyed this episode and want to help us keep making great content, go to patreon.com/genderrebels.
Please leave a 5-star review on iTunes.
And send your questions to questions@genderrebels.com.
Music for the Gender Rebels is by Jasper the Colossal. Link down below, or download them on iTunes.
For all our episodes, visit genderrebels.com.
Gender Rebels is a Comeback Sync production. All rights reserved.
And to all you gender rebels out there,
keep rebelling!